I think it's so awesome just watching a band that was young, just as we were while they were in their prime, and then watching them just grow into fatherhood, grow old, just like we do, but continue that success. That's why we're going to talk about the band we're talking about today. And that band is the band Fall Out Boy. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back, music lovers, especially my rock music lovers. That's right. Thank you. Welcome back once again. So, unless you're my age or older, maybe a little younger, you really have no idea how huge MTV was from the early 80s, pretty much into the early 2000s, maybe mid 2000s. It was so huge for bands and artists, getting exposure, putting them out there. And really, it took a lot of bands and artists that may not have gotten a chance to shine or show what their worth was unless MTV gave them that chance. And no doubt, MTV's massive, underrated, just genius cannot be forgotten, because it seems like these days it's definitely been forgotten about. Almost forgotten about. Now, when you try to think of a comp these days, there's lots of different platforms to choose from. There's so many different ways artists are putting music out there, and they can get exposure just as well as they would have on MTV in that time frame that I just described. Now, you think of iHeartRadio, and I think of them as one of those platforms that definitely put mainstream artists out there for people to hear anything new that they put out, or old, and even up-and-coming artists can get their stuff put out there, and iHeartRadio will support them and help them grow, which I find very awesome. Now, they have award season every year. iHeartRadio has their award show, and this year they graced, and rightfully so, Alternative Artist of the Year to the band Fall Out Boy. Now, me personally, I consider this a huge win for rock music, and I'm so happy for Fall Out Boy. Can I sit here and say I'm the biggest Fall Out Boy fan in the world? No, absolutely not, but I got a lot of respect for him, and in this video, we're going to go through a timeline of why I think it's awesome that they won this award and that they're still getting respect today in their fan base as strong as ever. For rock music, when I say it's a win, it's because we know as the decades have went on, there was moments in time, especially in the 80s. Rock and roll music reigned supreme. It was what was hot. It was what was played on most commercials. It's what was played in most movies. But you had your pop artists, Madonna, Michael Jackson, Cyndi Lauper. They were hot just as well. But you really think about it, rock and roll was king. And eventually it kind of simmered out, and that's fine. But the rock and roll fan base never died. It's still here, just as strong as it's ever been. But when you look at the mainstream, it's what new sound is in, what new style of music is in, and there always will be a different style. But people that love rock and roll music will always be around, and I do believe at some point rock music will climb back to the top of that mountain. I don't know when, and I don't know how or who that artist or artists are going to be that bring it back, but it's never going anywhere. No matter how many people try to convince you it's dead, rock music's not dead. Along with Fall Out Boy in the category for Alternative Artist of the Year at the iHeartRadio Music Awards, you had bands like Blink-182, Foo Fighters, Green Day, and Paramore. Those were the other bands in that category up for the award. Now, if you really think about it, it's pretty cool. Paramore being the outlier, I'll give Paramore as a band respect for their early years. There was some of their early stuff that wasn't too bad as far as I'm concerned. They've since changed quite a bit. But you think of those other bands, Green Day, Foo Fighters, Blink-182, along with Fall Out Boy. If you go back to 2004, those bands were just as hot then as they had ever been, ever in their prime. And you have them here in 2024 going up against each other for an award. It's awesome. It was like a shot right back in time. Now, I kind of hate the fact that it was called Alternative Artist of the Year. The word rock is not mentioned at all, but that's fine. We're still getting some respect, and I don't got no problem with Fall Out Boy winning the award. You got the original not the original Blink-182 lineup, but the Blink-182 lineup that we consider Blink-182. Travis, Mark, and obviously Tom. That's Blink-182 to me, even though it may not have been the original. And then Green Day. Guys have been around forever. Absolutely awesome. Mike, Trey, and the man himself, Billy Joel. It's Green Day still going strong today. And then the Foo Fighters. Obviously, sucks for the Foo Fighters because they've been around. As soon as Nirvana ended, Dave Grohl had something lined up, and the Foo Fighters got going. Obviously, the fact that they lost their drummer. Really, really sucks, because I do believe that, Taylor was an awesome drummer, but, no matter how good of a person you are, drugs can, well, take your life away. And that's exactly what happened. But each one of those bands deserved to be up for that award. And when I think about Fall Out Boy, it's Joe, Andy, Pete, and Patrick. Those are the 4 guys that are Fall Out Boy, even though there were other members in the past, because guys formed in early 2001 in a suburb of Chicago. And it wasn't until 2003 that they released their debut album, Take This to Your Grave. Now, at that time, that was the first time I ever heard Fall Out Boy, and I didn't get too into them at that moment. But the type of bands I was listening to, it fit in, because I loved NoFX, I loved AFI, I loved Rancid, Bad Religion. Those are the bands I was into at that time. Those were my 4 favorites. That's who I listened to the most. I'd even get into some hardcore bands like Hatebreed, Madball, but that was the style I was in. But when I heard bands like Good Charlotte, and Fall Out Boy, I could get into them. They were catchy. New Found Glory being another one of those bands. But, that first album in 2003 by Fall Out Boy really didn't draw me in. But what they did in 2005 absolutely drew me in. 2005, we got the album From Under the Cork Tree, and I remember so vividly, everywhere I went, Sugar We're Going Down was killing it on the radio, on MTV, MTV2, VH1. It didn't matter. Sugar We're Going Down was absolutely the jam that summer in 2005. And then Dance Dance, the second single off the album, was just as huge. The video was awesome. These guys, they made their mark. I mean, they were coming on strong in the early 2000s, 2001, 2003, but when they dropped that sophomore album in 2005, they were there. They were on top of the world. People loved Fall Out Boy. They couldn't get enough of them. Pete Wentz was like the ladies' man of the century for pop punk bands, and he was all over every magazine you could think of. And Pete really is somewhat of the genius behind the band. He does pretty much most of the lyrics for every one of their songs. And then Patrick, he pretty much writes the music for most of the songs. So those 2 guys together with their minds come up with some great stuff. I mean, Joe's guitar playing is phenomenal. Andy's drumming is pretty damn good. So I give the guys a lot of respect. And at that moment in 2005, Fall Out Boy got a new fan in me, and they were on top of the world, 100%. Just when you thought Fall Out Boy couldn't get any hotter, 2007 they did with their 3rd album, Infinity on High. And for that whole year, I think Thanks for the Memories was the song I had on my MP3 player, that along with all my other songs that were just the ones I listened to on a daily basis because I absolutely enjoyed them. Thanks for the Memories was one of those songs from Infinity on High, and I love that. And This Ain't an Arms Race, absolutely amazing song. I mean, they were literally on a trajectory that was taking them to nowhere but great heights. And those first 3 albums absolutely was one step up the ladder each time. And man, their genius was completely out there for the world to see. And they were getting so much respect, and the fan base was growing by the years. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. At this point in 2007, I could say, you know what? I really loved Fall Out Boy, and I was a huge fan at that time. They were my top 10 at that time. I got to see them one time at the Warped Tour the year before that album came out, and it was a pretty damn cool show, because anytime you go to the Warped Tour, it was family. It was a camaraderie. It was just a bunch of people there that loved punk music, they loved skateboarding, and they loved that lifestyle. There might be certain bands that some people were there to see that they would just say, these bands don't belong here, or vice versa. But it didn't matter. We didn't have to hate on each other. Even though it got a little crazy sometimes, the Vans Warped Tour was a family. And if you went to it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, their next studio album the following year in 2008, and I'm going to put it right down here because I don't want to pronounce it wrong, but it was pretty much a commercial disappointment. And at that point, after that album, you kind of thought to yourself, not only did they go on a hiatus after that, and you thought, okay, maybe the band was just going to break up, and there was not a lot of great songs on there, and it seemed like they were just going to be forgotten about and the world was going to move on. But that wasn't the case, because 6 years later, 6.5 years later, 2013, they released a gem of an album that put them right back to relevancy. Now, that 2013 album was a perfect album name for them to come back with. It was called Save Rock and Roll, and the lead single on it was My Songs Know What You Did in the Dark. And I remember hearing it on the radio for the first time. I was like, new Fall Out Boy song. And it goes into that bridge. Light 'em up, up, up. Light 'em up, up. Light 'em up, up. I'm on fire. Oh, it was awesome. Awesome song. And the guys were back. They released a badass album, a badass song. And it was just a breath of fresh air to say, you know what? Just as quick as you thought the guys were done and they were gone, they'd let you know they weren't going anywhere. 2 years later in 2015, they released American Beauty, American Psycho. And they had hits on it like Centuries and Uma Thurman. And man, the guys were, they had children. They were getting much older. And the fact that they went on a hiatus and came back strong with an awesome album in 2013, that 2015 album just cemented them as great band. Like, you think about Green Day, who had awesome albums, and then they kind of leveled out, but then they had that great album later in their career that put them right back to the top. That's what this 2015 album did for Fall Out Boy. Really, the 2013 album did. Save Rock and Roll. But, man, this album in 2015, Centuries, was a huge hit. Uma Thurman, huge hit. And, I mean, the guys were just showing the age didn't matter. The transitions they were making in life didn't matter. They were still a tight unit, and they could still make great music. And it was showing at that time. And it's kind of led into where we're at today. So the 2018 album Mania was their 4th album to peak at number 1 on the charts. And it was their 6th album to peak top 10. So, I mean, the guys, man, they just knew what they were doing, and their fan base never gives up on them. And that led into their new album, So Much for Stardust. And that's the album that got them the award this year at the iHeartRadio Music Awards for Alternative Artist of the Year. And when I watched the guys go up, it was just Andy and Pete that went up and accepted the award. They didn't say much, but just looking at those guys, looking at what they look like now, knowing that their parents, they're much older, they've been through so much in life, just like we have since that moment we were first introduced to them in the early 2000s. And to know that they were still loved, they were still getting recognition, and they were still being recognized as a great band in today's day and age. It made me feel good and happy for them, for their fan base, and just for rock music in general. That's why I think it was a beautiful, awesome thing that they won this award. Had the Foo Fighters won it, I would have been just as happy. Had Green Day won it, still just as happy. Blink-182, just as happy. Had Paramore won it, I'd have had some questions. But it didn't matter. Fall Out Boy had those peaks and valleys, but they're still getting recognition and love today. And I love that for rock music. Well, I guess if we want to get right down to it, the point today is seeing the evolution of Fall Out Boy is just another example of a great band who stayed true to themselves, and even well into 20 years of their career, they're still relevant, they still have a strong fan base, and they're still creating great music. So right there, that's a lot of respect. And there's a lesson to be learned for all of us. If you're passionate about something, do it. Stay true to it. Don't let nobody steer you in the wrong direction. You might throw a couple duds out there. Obviously their 2008 album, not a great success compared to what they did before. But they came back strong and did great stuff after that. So don't ever let those moments when things are not going your way steer you away from doing what you know you want to do and what you know in your heart is right. Always continue on that road. And you'll always be successful. Just got to deal with those rough moments, those rough patches in life. So awesome that Fall Out Boy won that award this year. Awesome that they're just still doing great things. And it's awesome for rock music because we still got great bands out there and we still got good music for the world to hear. Fall Out Boy is proof of that, just as well as many other bands. But you know what? Go out there, take a page from their book, continue to do what you want to do. And if you haven't started doing what you want to do in life, I encourage you, go for it. Take that leap and go for what you want in life. There's no reason to live your life unhappy. So until next time, go out there, take care of your friends, your family. Do something amazing. Absolutely. Do whatever you want in life because you can do it. Till next time, take care of yourself. I'm out.